Isn't that incredible? When you think about the machine, the living machine, that my brain that has stored all the life experiences in my mind are going to affect my physical being, my body, for health or destruction. Let's move on to this next one. Can the mind affect the immune system? The brain and the immune system can either stimulate the red arrows or inhibit the blue arrows each other. Immune cells produce cytokines, chemical signals that stimulate the hypothalamus through the bloodstream or via nerves elsewhere in the body. Corticotropin-releasing hormone produced in the hypothalamus activates the HPA axis, a central component of the brain's neuroendocrine response to stress. The release of cortisol tunes down the immune system. CRH, acting on the brainstem, stimulates the sympathetic nervous system, which innervates immune organs and regulates inflammatory responses throughout the body. Disrupting of these communications in any way leads to greater susceptibility to disease and immune complications. So how your attitude can affect your health, realizing the things I just shared, through the years we have found that the following states of mind are injurious to the chemical and electrical balance of the body because of their emotional potential. Anger, discontent, unhappiness, overexcitement, anxiety, fear, remorse, guilt, distrust, and selfishness. Let me read you what happens to the body just when you harbor guilt. We must recognize that the stressors are not all externally induced. The most destructive may come from within. Consider guilt. When a person lies or steals or commits some other antisocial act that the Christian would call a sin, what happens when you sin? Remember when Jesus said to the paraplegic, "Rise, take up thy bed and walk"? The guy couldn't walk. And Jesus turns and says to him, "Don't go sin anymore." And I've often thought of this mind-body connection, that was it the guilt of the man's sins that brought on the malady in which he was suffering from? Well, let's read on. What Christians would call as sin. A conflict begins in the brain that causes a surge of nerve impulses and chemical changes. These usually serve to put the body in fighting trim. But if they persist over a long period of time, they affect the body's normal resistance to disease. My mother died December 4th last year. It was a very hard situation for me. My mother's mother, who was 100 years old, was hospitalized 2 months after my mother's death and said that she would die on March 5th, which was my mother's birthday. I walked into the hospital on March 6th in the morning, and the doctor said, "She may still be able to hear you, but she's gone." The morning after my mother's birthday, the woman said she would die on this date. It happened. My father, 56 years of marriage with my mother, has a skin disorder, psoriasis. Since my mother's death, everything has changed on his skin. He's now getting blisters on his skin, bleeding through those blisters on his skin. His immune system has shut down further because of the psychological stressors that have affected him since she has died. Let me read on. Guilt can affect the heartbeat and the blood pressure, can cause a dilation of certain blood vessels and of the pupils of the eye, the production and distribution of certain digestive juices, and the digestive process itself. The only answer to these problems is to live in harmony with one's set of values. More will be said later. Then it says the consciousness of right doing is the best medicine for diseased bodies and minds. The special blessing of God resting upon the receiver is health and strength. Nothing tends more to promote health of the body and of the soul than does a spirit of gratitude and praise. So instead of anger and discontent, you need to harbor thoughts of gratitude and praise. Opposite states of mind help us to recharge the life force. See, when I think now in areas of health, I remember when I was with Charlotte Gerson, who you'll meet, and many of you perhaps have never heard her speak. She's phenomenal. But Charlotte taught me when I went to Mexico to do a documentary on alternative cancer therapies. She said to me, Danny, you need to start thinking on cellular level. If the food does not get into the cells, unless it's assimilated, it is of no value to the body. And I began to think about the electrical charge of the body, the glow of light around the living cell, and that God at creation put within man a vital force, an electrical current that we can either continue to charge as we're connected to the source of power and through the electrically charged raw living foods that we eat and through the sleep that regenerates us, or we can drain it. And you know how you drain vital force? Not getting enough sleep, eating dead, devitalized food, negative thoughts, drug medications. Put a double whammy on the life force, because now you're not just draining it because of the illness, you're draining it because of the side effects of the pharmaceutical medications. That's why drugs do not cure, they do not heal. They just present some temporary relief of symptoms. The Bible says a merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit, a bad negative attitude, rots the bones. When you think of the bones, you think of the bone marrow, you think of the immune system. The immune cells that are produced within that bone marrow is affected by your thoughts according to the Bible. Love, satisfaction of right doing, happiness, hope, courage, cheerfulness, gratitude, thankfulness, faith, selflessness. Physicians have learned that the spirit of the patient has much to do with his power to fight disease and to recover from illness. Good and right thinking go hand in hand with health and vital energy for living. Some even conclude that negative emotions can directly affect certain body organs. The negative emotions on the left tend to affect the organs listed on the right. And anger, the liver. Bitterness, the gallbladder. Grief and sadness, the hearts and the lungs. Vulnerability, feelings of abandonment, the stomach. Inflexibility and defensiveness, the small intestine. Low self-esteem, feelings of rejection, the spleen and the pancreas. Fear and terror, the kidneys. Irritation, timidity, the bladder, and confusion, the thyroid and the adrenal glands. Isn't that incredible? Now, I believe that could be very well true. Very well true. And when I see somebody come in who's bitter, I give them milk thistle and do a liver flush. And anger. Another research article said that personality factors also have been correlated with specific diseases. For example, rheumatoid arthritis has been correlated with perfectionism, compliance, subservience, nervousness, restlessness, reserve, and anger. Cardiovascular disease has been associated with the type A personality or behavior, hostility, or whether or not a person is a hot reactor. Cancer has been correlated with non-assertiveness, the inability to express the emotion condition reputedly linked to cancer incidents. That's why I see people in the cold sheet treatment. When they vent their frustrations and their anger and the pain that they have experienced through their husbands, and I counsel them to go to the husband and express it to him. You vented it, but it may be best to let him know the way you're feeling. That they vented. It's off their back, and the body responds with